The fluorescent lights of the hospital buzz faintly, humming like tired bees overhead. Nurse Emily moves quickly down the corridor, her sneakers squeaking against the polished floor. Her hair is tied back in a loose bun, strands escaping with every rushed movement. She has been on her feet for 13 hours straight, yet her shift is not over. The call button rings again from room 207. Without hesitation, she pushes through the fatigue and answers it with a practiced smile that hides the exhaustion in her bones. Emily has grown used to the rhythm of sacrifice, the long shifts, the skipped meals, the relentless weight of responsibility. Every paycheck arrives already claimed by rent, utilities, and the never-ending medical bills of her younger brother. She doesn't complain. Complaining doesn't make numbers in a bank account change. She survives on black coffee, hurried snacks, and a stubborn sense of duty. But underneath it all, there is a longing she can't silence. Each morning, on her way to work, she passes a boutique with a window display that seems to mock her. The mannequin wears a simple blue dress, elegant in its simplicity. It isn't designer, it isn't extravagant. Yet it shines to her like a beacon of everything she doesn't have. The price tag is more than she can justify, but less than the weight she feels from never owning anything beautiful for herself. Emily always pauses for a second too long, pretending to check her phone so strangers won't notice her staring. Then she walks on, back to the world where wanting is dangerous and needing is endless. At the hospital, her co-workers chat about weekend plans, new shoes, dinners at restaurants she can't afford. She nods politely, adding little, fearing that her silence will expose her reality. While they talk about vacations, Emily is calculating how many shifts she can pick up before she collapses. When they share photos of new outfits, she thinks of the dress in the window. The contrast slices into her quietly, leaving no scar that anyone can see. Even in the break room, she feels the distance. She carries her small, packed lunch from home, a sandwich wrapped carefully, an apple slightly bruised. She eats quickly, back straight, eyes on the clock. No time to savor, no space to dream. The others laugh, the sound echoing like music from a world she doesn't belong to. She wants to laugh too, but laughter feels like a luxury she can't afford. The nights are the hardest. When the hallways grow quiet and the monitors beep in steady rhythm, her mind drifts. She imagines slipping into that blue dress, feeling fabric instead of scrubs against her skin. She imagines walking into a room where people notice her, not because she is serving, healing, fixing, but because she is simply there. The thought both comforts and torments her, pulling her between hope and reality. Still, she keeps moving, room after room, patient after patient, smiling when she wants to sigh, giving when she has nothing left to give. And every time she passes the boutique window on her way home, the blue dress waits untouched, a silent reminder of everything just out of reach. The hospital feels different tonight. The hum of machinery is the same, the muted footsteps, the faint smell of antiseptic that clings to every wall. Yet there's a softer sound rising from room 214, a child's laughter, small and fragile, like glass that could break at any moment. Nurse Emily steps inside, balancing a chart in one hand and a tray in the other. On the bed sits a boy, no older than 8, pale from recovery but smiling as though the world is brighter than his body will allow. Emily sets the tray down gently. "How are we doing today, champ?" she asks, adjusting his pillow with careful hands. The boy nods, eyes shining. "Better, because you're here." His voice is weak but honest, and it sinks into her chest with unexpected weight. She laughs softly, brushing his hair from his forehead, pretending her heart doesn't twist at his words. In the corner of the room, the boy's father sits quietly in a chair. He has been there every evening, a shadow anchored beside his son, silent but vigilant. His clothes are plain, his eyes marked by sleepless nights, but they never waver from the boy's face. Tonight, however, something shifts. He watches Emily, not just the way she adjusts Roman 4 lines or checks vitals, but how she kneels beside the bed and whispers stories that make his son forget the ache. She tells him about a dog she once had as a child, about how clumsy it was and how it chewed through every shoe she owned. The boy giggles, clutching his blanket, the sound filling the sterile room with warmth. His father notices the way Emily doesn't rush, how she listens to every word the child says as though nothing else in the world matters. For a man who has lived in silence since his wife's passing, the sight stirs something he hasn't felt in years. Emily doesn't know he is watching so closely. She doesn't see the way his eyes soften when she leans down to pick up a dropped toy, or how he notices her hands trembling slightly from exhaustion she refuses to show. What he sees isn't just a nurse's resilience, kindness wrapped in tired skin, hope disguised as a smile. When the boy drifts into sleep, Emily pulls the blanket higher, tucking him in with the gentleness of someone who has no children of her own but carries the heart of a mother. She turns off the light above the bed, and for a moment the father thinks she will leave like every other nurse before her. But instead, she lingers, checking the machines one more time, smoothing the sheets even though they're already smooth. She moves with a care that cannot be taught in training, a devotion that belongs to something deeper. The father clears his throat, the sound startling her slightly. "Thank you," he says, his voice rough from disuse. She glances at him, surprised. "Just doing my job," she replies softly, though even she knows it is more than that. Their eyes meet briefly in the dim light, a fleeting exchange heavy with unspoken recognition. Neither of them speaks again, but the silence is no longer empty. Something invisible hums between them, alive and waiting. The hospital's night shift moves slowly, as though time itself is weighed down by fatigue. Machines beep in steady rhythm. Nurses shuffle past with clipboards tucked under tired arms, and the air is thick with the smell of disinfectant. Emily stands at the nurse's station, flipping through charts, her pen tapping unconsciously against the paper. She's trying to stay alert, though her body screams for rest. A voice breaks the monotony. "Emily." She looks up to see him, the boy's father, standing a few feet away, hands buried in the pockets of his jacket. His presence is quiet but commanding, and for a moment she forgets the chart in her hand. His eyes are steady, yet his posture betrays hesitation, as if he's rehearsed something and isn't sure whether to say it. "You're here late again," she says, forcing a polite smile. "I didn't want to leave him alone," he answers, his tone soft but weighted. His gaze drops to the floor before lifting again, meeting hers with a flicker of resolve. There's a pause, the kind of silence that pulls the air tighter around them. Then, with a breath that sounds almost shaky, he speaks. "You've been more than just his nurse. You've been hope." Emily blinks, caught off guard. Compliments aren't foreign in her line of work, but this feels different, personal, vulnerable. She shifts her weight, unsure how to respond. Before she can speak, he continues, "I know this isn't ordinary, and maybe it's not the right time, but..." His hand moves from his pocket, clenching slightly as though trying to keep steady. "Would you go out with me? Would you be my first date since my wife passed?" The words hang in the air, fragile yet heavy, pressing into Emily's chest. For a second, the hospital noise fades, the beeping, the footsteps, the chatter of colleagues, all dissolving until it's just the two of them standing in a fragile bubble of silence. Her heart races. She feels heat rise in her cheeks, her throat tightening. Of all the things she expected, this wasn't one of them. A patient's father, a man who has barely spoken more than a handful of sentences until now. The world tilts slightly, leaving her unsteady. I don't know what to say," she whispers, her voice catching. His expression is steady, though his eyes reveal nerves beneath the calm surface. "Say what you feel," he replies quietly, "that's all." Emily's mind floods with thought. Rules, boundaries, consequences, but also with the sound of his son's laughter when she tells her stories, with the memory of his eyes watching her from the corner, not with judgment, but with something she can't quite name. She wants to retreat, to fall back into the safe routine of charts and shifts, but her pulse betrays her. It drums fast, echoing through her body, telling her this moment is unlike any other she has faced. She swallows hard, hands tightening on the chart still clutched in her grip, trying to decide if her voice will obey her heart or her fear, standing there in the dim glow of the hallway where everything suddenly feels like it could shift. The silence stretches between them, heavy and unrelenting. Emily grips the chart in her hands until the edges crumple. Her throat feels dry, her lips parting as though to answer, but the words refuse to form. The father waits, his eyes searching hers, patient but trembling beneath the surface. She begins, then stops. The heat in her cheeks spreads downward, filling her chest. I don't even. She exhales sharply, forcing herself to meet his gaze. I don't even own a dress. It slips out like a confession she didn't plan to give. She hadn't meant to reveal something so personal, but the truth tears itself free before she can restrain it. The humiliation burns instantly, because here she stands, a grown woman, admitting to a man she barely knows that she can't afford something as simple as a dress. His expression doesn't shift to pity. Instead, he looks at her with a gentleness that unsettles her more than scorn ever could. Slowly, almost cautiously, he reaches into the inside pocket of his jacket. For a moment, Emily stiffens, unsure what he's about to reveal. Then, between his fingers, he pulls out a slim white envelope. I wasn't sure if I should, he says quietly, extending it toward her, but I want you to have this. Emily stares at the envelope, frozen. Her fingers twitch, but she doesn't take it immediately. The envelope looks ordinary, yet it radiates weight. What is this? She asks, her voice thinner than she intends. Just open it. Her hand finally lifts, reluctant, hesitant, until the envelope rests against her palm. She slides a finger beneath the flap, unfolding the paper inside. At first she doesn't understand, then her eyes widen. A gift card, not extravagant, not flashy, but enough. Enough to buy the dress she has passed by every day. Enough to erase the silent shame of never allowing herself something beautiful. Her breath catches. She feels the sting of tears pressing against her eyes, blurring the hospital corridor into indistinct light and shadow. She shakes her head slowly, voice trembling. Why would you do this for me? He takes a step closer, careful not to intrude but close enough that his presence surrounds her. Because you've given so much without asking for anything in return, he says. Because you've reminded my son what joy feels like, because you deserve to feel seen. The words wrap around her like a blanket she didn't know she needed. For years she has walked unseen, serving, healing, patching broken lives while hiding the fractures of her own. Now, in this quiet exchange, someone has peeled back the curtain, acknowledging not just her work but her humanity. Her hand trembles as she clutches the envelope, as though letting go might shatter the fragile moment. Her lips part again, but no sound comes, only the ragged rhythm of breath that betrays her swelling emotion. The weight of what he's given her is not just fabric or money, it's dignity, permission to dream, a reflection of worth she had long forgotten. The night arrives sooner than Emily expects. All day she moves through her shift as though in a daze, the envelope still hidden in the pocket of her bag, its weight heavier than any chart she's ever carried. Every time she feels it press against her side, her chest tightens. She tells herself it's just a piece of plastic, a number on a card, nothing more. But deep inside, she knows it's more than that. The boutique window greets her like it always does, yet tonight it feels different. The mannequin still stands, its porcelain frame draped in that familiar blue dress, the one she's stopped to stare at countless times. But now she isn't just staring, she's standing with possibility in her hand. Her reflection appears faintly in the glass, tired eyes and messy hair framed against the shimmer of the dress. For once, she allows herself to step through the door. The shop bell jingles softly above her as she enters. Fabric rustles in neat rows, colors brighter than she remembers. Her hands brush over the smooth material, hesitant, as though touching something forbidden. The shop assistant greets her with a practiced smile, but Emily barely hears it. She's already walking toward the dress, drawn as though the world narrows into this single moment. When she tries it on, she almost doesn't recognize the woman in the mirror. The fabric drapes across her frame, hugging and flowing in all the right places. Her shoulders straighten unconsciously, her chin lifts, the fluorescent fitting, room light is harsh, yet even under its unforgiving glare, she feels radiant in a way she hasn't in years. She smooths the fabric down her sides, fingertips trembling. She whispers to herself, almost like a secret, "This is me." Later, on the night of the date, she stands in her small apartment, staring once again into a mirror. But this time the image staring back is not a weary nurse hidden in scrubs. It is someone softened, reshaped, revealed. The blue dress glimmers faintly under the glow of the lamp. Her hair, carefully brushed, frames her face. She applies lipstick with a shaking hand, not because she doubts herself, but because she feels the enormity of the moment pressing close. Outside, the evening air carries a crisp chill. She walks slowly toward the restaurant, every step echoing louder than the last. The streetlights cast golden halos along the pavement, and for the first time in so long, she doesn't shrink into the shadows. She lets the light touch her, lets herself be seen. When she steps through the restaurant doors, he is already there. The father looks up from the table, his eyes catching hers instantly. For a heartbeat, neither of them moves. His mouth parts slightly, but no words come. His gaze doesn't rest on the dress, it rests on her, wholly, completely, as though he's seeing someone he's been waiting for all along. Emily feels her chest tighten, not with nerves but with something startlingly alive. The clatter of dishes, the murmur of conversations, the soft strains of music, all fade as she crosses the room, every movement heavier with meaning than she can fully process, the space between them shrinking with each step. The moment Emily reaches the table, time feels as though it slowed into fragments. She smooths the hem of her dress unconsciously, her pulse racing against her ribs. The father stands quickly, almost too quickly, as if unsure of what's proper yet unwilling to stay seated. His eyes meet hers, and for an instant the whole restaurant seems to vanish, leaving only the quiet pull between them. "You look." His voice falters, he swallows, starts again. "You look like yourself." The words strike her deeper than any polished compliment could. She feels her lips curve into a shy smile, her shoulders easing slightly as he pulls out the chair for her. When she sits, the air between them feels tentative but alive, charged with something neither of them has named yet. The waiter brings menus, but they barely glance at them. Conversation comes haltingly at first, then flows like water breaking through a dam. He tells her about his late wife, how she loved sunflowers, how her laughter could fill a room, how the silence after her passing nearly swallowed him whole. He admits he hasn't gone on a single date since, not because he didn't want companionship, but because no one ever felt right. Emily listens, her hands folded tightly in her lap. She shares pieces of herself she rarely gives away. Her brother's illness, the weight of bills, the loneliness of working nights surrounded by lives she fixes but never truly touches. She confesses how she always felt invisible, how the dress she wears tonight had once seemed like an impossible dream. As the evening unfolds, laughter stitches itself into the spaces where grief once lingered. The boy's father leans forward, his elbows on the table, his eyes locked on hers as though he's afraid she'll vanish if he looks away. Emily feels the strange sensation of being seen, not as the nurse who patches others, but as a woman worthy of tenderness. By the time dessert is cleared away, the restaurant's noise has dulled into a background hum. Emily notices how comfortable she feels, how natural it is to sit across from him, how their silences are no longer awkward but weighted with unspoken understanding. When they step outside, the night air greets them with a chill that makes Emily shiver. Without hesitation, he slips off his jacket and drapes it over her shoulders. She looks at him, startled by the gesture, and in that moment his hand brushes hers. The contact is small, almost accidental, yet it carries the force of a promise. They walk slowly down the dimly lit street, their footsteps falling into rhythm. At the corner, he pauses, turning to face her fully. His voice is low, almost hesitant, but filled with quiet resolve. "This may be my first date since losing her," he says, eyes holding hers as though the world depends on her answer. "But I hope it isn't our last." Emily's breath catches. For years, she has given everything without ever being chosen, without ever being wanted for herself. And now, under the glow of the streetlight, wrapped in his jacket, standing in the dress she thought she would never own, she feels destiny shift. She lets her fingers entwine with his, a single choice that speaks louder than any words. The night carries them forward, hand in hand, no longer two strangers bound by circumstance, but two souls daring to begin again.